Let's get right into this review for Drop. Alright, so Drop is directed by Christopher Landon, who most notably worked on Happy Death Day. And the story here follows Meghan Fahy playing Violet, a widowed mother with a traumatic past who decides it's finally time to go on a second date night. But things take a turn for the worse on the cusp of a perfect date as she starts receiving random phone drops giving her legitimate threats and horrific commands. Now I have to say, when I initially viewed the trailer, I thought the movie would be mediocre at best. And really the high average Rotten Tomatoes score for this film surprised me and sealed the deal in making sure I went to the theater opening weekend to check this film out. And now that I watched Drop, what did I think about the overall cinematic package here? Unfortunately, my initial impressions stand true. This was just a mediocre film. I guess a part of me was hopeful and ecstatic that the story would take different creative swings in navigating the thriller genre within the confines of this particular idea about receiving phone drops as threats. But I'd say after viewing right up until the middle point of Act 2, you start to quickly realize that the story is undoubtedly confined to the restriction of its own play space and not in a good way. This play space being a fine dining restaurant where there's only so many places you can go and different excuses you can make to continue stirring up the drama and the tense moments. This is undoubtedly a B-tier plot that had some decent moments of intrigue, but also many moments when the narrative dipped into the C-tier territory. I thought the setup and the initial phases were alright as a starting point, but it never got any better than that the further the story played out. As a matter of fact, my interest was on a constant decline throughout the acts as you realize the story is going to play out exactly the way you think it will. There was never a moment of twists and turns that caught me off guard here. And even though I didn't technically guess the main antagonist correctly, I can't say I was all too surprised by the big reveal. This was kind of an absurd plot, and really that reveal at the climax of Act 3 didn't help the story whatsoever. And without a doubt, Act 3 was definitely the weakest link in the cinematic experience. Now I also want to take the time to go over some positives to this film. I really enjoyed Brandon Sklenar and Meghan Fahy's chemistry together. There were some good moments between the two of them, and I enjoyed their presence on screen throughout the different story segments. And for a film with an $11 million investment, it never came off as low budget. Everything from the visuals to the effects worked incredibly well for the story being told here. I also enjoyed the cinematography here, especially when we see the mental state of the main lead. Those were some creative shots. My final score for Drop ends up being 6 out of 10. This is an alright one-time watch experience. If you were intrigued by the trailer, I can still see this being a decent night out at the theaters. The film never dares to go above and beyond in its calling, but is still able to provide a mediocre level of satisfaction for a B-tier story. There's definitely nothing original in its story presentation compared to other thrillers and whodunit films out there, and I can't say I'll remember this as one of the more memorable films. But for what it's worth, the production team did a fantastic job with the screenplay at hand, and you can tell they had a blast shooting on set, which is always a plus. Anyways, thanks for checking this movie review out. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed what you saw, and I'll look forward to seeing you on my next upload. But until then, stay safe out there, and peace.